Hello everyone! Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. The bridge stands exactly a 25-minute walk from the last house of town. You have to take the path that winds around the edges of the fields, and then when the route splits, you take the track less traveled. Head towards the mountains in the east until you reach the river, and then follow it upstream for about 10 or 11 more minutes. That's where it is. Beautiful and unassuming, a careful little stone structure built over the river. I discovered it for the first time in the summer, and I only found it by chance. It isn't immediately obvious, the bridge. My dog Birdie was the one who actually led me there. I let him off the lead and he made a beeline right in that direction. I had to rush after him when I became concerned that he might tumble into the river. It was stupid of me, really. I haven't let him off leash anywhere dangerous since then, don't worry. But yeah, so that's when we found the bridge. Birdie spent a happy half hour sniffing all around it and wagging excitedly. Though in the summer it isn't very remarkable. It leads over the river to a small clearing. Pleasant enough, a nice grass, a big tree. Some tumbled rocks where it borders the base of the closest hills. I don't know what else to tell you, really. It just leads to nowhere in particular. Probably why it's never used and nobody knows that it exists. But in the winter, something changes. Just under a week ago, I was walking Birdie down that same route. I had opted, as I'd sometimes do, for the track less traveled, marveling quietly at the mountains and the snow, when I felt Birdie tug at the leash. I looked down at him and he looked back up at me and he whined a little. I laughed. "Oh, silly dog, what do you want, huh?" But it was clear what he wanted to do. He wanted to head back to his favorite bridge. "All right, Bert, let's do it." So I allow him to lead us back down along the river, being careful to keep him on his leash this time. Upon our arrival, I could immediately tell that something was different. There was a certain sense in the air, an atmosphere that just felt off. So despite Birdie's pleas, I decided to deny his pleas to go sniffing about. I don't recall what I thought exactly when I spotted the anomaly for the first time. The tracks, I mean. The footprints in the snow. I think my first thought was probably modest surprise that somebody actually knew that this bridge existed. But the real bizarrity was the fact that the footprints only went halfway across. Regular boot-shaped footprints leading up and out to the middle of the bridge, and there they just stopped. They vanished as if the man was mid-step and then simply dissolved into thin air, into wintry mist. The thought made me shiver, but I didn't take it very seriously. Though Birdie was desperate to go and investigate, I held him back and instead we went along our way. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. I just couldn't get those unnatural footprints out of my head. I'll just let it go already. I tried to tell myself, this is so stupid. The guy probably doubled back on himself, or maybe the snow fell and covered up some of the prints. But both of these rationalizations failed to adequately explain what I saw. Did he just jump off? Push himself up and onto the side of the bridge in a single jump and leap right off? But why would he do that? Why would anyone do that? Maybe you get whisked away the second you reach the halfway mark. Whisked away never to return to some magical land. And so a few days later, I find myself back at the bridge. More tracks, more footprints, and deer prints this time by the look of them, and again just halfway across. Only halfway across to that empty, unassuming, snowy clearing beyond. And I know what you're thinking. You're wondering why I haven't crossed myself to check it out already, to see what would happen. And to be honest, it's because to do so is stupid. Why should I cross? So I can see my footprints in the snow and push these intrusive daydreams aside. It's childish. I have no need to do such a thing. So naturally, my story begins a day later, right here at the foot of the bridge, preparing to cross. Birdie isn't with me this time. It's only me. Jacket open at the front and allowing in the chill. I could zip it up and save some warmth, but to do so would require me to take my hands out of my pockets. And to be honest, I can't really be bothered to do that right now. A snow-capped pine tree to my right sways gently in the sudden breeze and I shiver, still stubbornly refusing to remove my hands from my pockets. Ahead in the snow are the prints of a fox. They patter around in a rough circle and then head to the bridge. My eyes follow them up, the little dents in the white, and sure enough, there they cease at exactly halfway. Halfway, only ever halfway. Well, we'll see what happens with mine now, won't we? I say aloud to no one, my breath clouding as I take that first step forwards. I keep to my pace and don't slow or turn back, trudging forwards and crunching in the snow, my footprints deep and obvious. Trying closer now, closer to the middle. My heart to my confusion starts to pound, but I don't slow down. I just keep moving forward until I have crossed halfway. Head down, I watch my feet continue to make dutiful prints in the snow. Over the bridge and across the snow, and I come to a quick stop at the other side of the embankment. There, done, I did it. I sigh with just a little disappointment. A part of me really wished that something was going to happen, something, anything. Something to add a little sparkle of wonder to my life. But even as I think these thoughts, I realize that something has changed. I have crossed the bridge, but looking back over it now, I see what appears to be the clearing on the opposite side. The clearing that I should have just crossed to. Yeah, there's the big tree, the tumbled rocks and to the edges of the hills, the mountains leading away beyond. I start an alarm as I see that my footprints only descend down the nearest half of the bridge. The opposite half is layered with entirely unbroken snow. What the heck? The footprints, my footprints, and incidentally the footprints of the fox, carry on downwards towards me, but they lead from nowhere. No, I think to myself, no way. Turning around, I try to take in my surroundings. It wasn't immediately obvious that anything had changed, but now that I have properly examined, I see that the landscape here is a complete mirror of the way that it looked on the opposite side of the bridge. Still wintry, still layered in snow. The river is there and the hills and the mountains, but the trees are different, and they're all in different places. There are tracks through the snow that didn't exist before. Not possible. This is insane. I mutter to myself, bewildered. Hey, comes the sudden voice of a girl, not far from me either. I jump in surprise, swiveling around to the voice's source, and there stands the voice's source, a girl about my age, maybe a little younger, wrapped up in a teal-blue woolen sweater and a gray, thready scarf. She's standing by a small pine tree with one hand on the trunk, and the other she brings up into a cautious and curious wave. She cocks her head and her antlers tip to the side. Two prominent antlers, like a deer who's sprouting up from the top of her head. Jesus, I shout in alarm, turning at once and tripping in the snow, staggering back to the bridge. Hey, wait, she calls out, but I do not. I sprint right across, eyes forced closed by the sudden blast of icy breeze at the bridge's center, before stumbling down to the bank on the other side. Dang, when did it get so dark? I look back behind me to see the original spectacle. On the opposite side is just an empty clearing, the clearing that I was expecting to see. No girl, no mirrored world, and of course, my footprints only go halfway across the bridge, just as it was before. I sprint all the way home and spend the evening in my room with Birdie, considering the things that I've seen. My fear, once I have time to process, quickly gives way to embarrassment and then to frustrated curiosity. Why did I leave so quickly? She seemed nice. A nice girl with antlers. Antlers. As the night progresses, I struggle to get her out of my head. I end up doodling her in the corner of one of my notebooks. What if she's trapped? What if she needs help? The thoughts go round and around as the snow falls beyond the windows, and she dances through my dreams in the night. The second that the sun has risen on that next wintry morning, I've left the house, heading right back to the bridge with a determination, heart beating as I feel through me something unknown, something exhilarating. The excitement of a genuine adventure, perhaps. I realize as I walk that it's not something that I've ever really felt before. Not in its purest form. The pines bristle quietly in the breeze and the river runs slowly beneath the ice. When I approach the bridge, I see that the night's falling snow has entirely covered my old tracks, and the crossing looks untouched. I take a deep breath and slide on my gloves, and then make my way down to it. Oh, don't chicken out, Stan, I tell myself. You got this. Over the bridge I go, watching carefully this time, waiting for the exact moment of the change. I hit the halfway point and that cold breeze forces me to squint and blink. And it's in these blinks that my surroundings are suddenly shifted. The view of the clearing ahead is lost, though I now know that I would still see its mirror image if I were to look behind me. In front of me is the shifted landscape, the new trees, the new tracks. And there, sitting on a branch in the tree at this time, is the girl. The girl with the antlers and the teal blue sweater. We stare at each other for a moment, and then she waves at me and jumps down from the tree, landing with a nimble crunch in the snow. Hey, she says. It's you, isn't it? The boy from last time. Yeah, hey, I reply awkwardly, still not entirely sure how to react to her. So, I came back to... Yeah, you came back. Real bad timing, though. I mean, what were you thinking? She isn't smiling this time. I don't know how to respond. Look, come on, quick, just get over here. She runs up to me and grabs my coat, dragging me down and away from the bridge. Hey, wait, just hold on up. We have to go, all right. They're watching the bridge. Whose? But the sound of a sudden whistling whine followed by a burst of flame in the snow to my right cuts my question in half. Crap! I shout in alarm as a trail of fine cloud races through the air above our heads, finishing in a tree as that whistling whine catches up to it and bursts into another ball of fire, sending roasted pine needles raining down. The antlered girl drags me through the bushes, a snow bursting in little clouds all around us as we push through, and she leads me across a nearby field. I turn to look behind me wide-eyed at the sight that meets me there. Unlawful entry of an organism into the holy machinic territory. Surrender yourself at once. Blares an angry mechanical voice. Stumbling past the trees and through the hedges come two tall and spindly beings made of a grim dark metal. Plumes of thick black smoke are sent spiraling up and out from pipes and chimneys that adorn their bodies, that comprise their bodies in an exoskeleton fashion. They grind and whir, and their necks extend out to disappear into a disturbingly fish-looking heads, made of a strange, charred metal though, of course. One of these metal monstrosities brings round an arm, and the tubes that connect its elbow to its body glisten bright in a sudden volcanic orange. I have to shield my face as a great breath of fire shivers from the creature's knuckles and torches the surrounding snow. I'm struck by a wave of warmth and turn back to face the way that I'm going. running as fast as I can to keep up with the girl. "What's happening?" I shout at her, but she ignores me, instead skidding to a rapid stop. I stumble right past her as she grabs the cuff of my coat, dragging me suddenly sideways and down the edge of a steep bank, down towards the widening, iced-over river below. Down we go, and then round corner after corner, our feet cracking the edges of the water's ice until the ground to our left levels out, and she hauls me up into the snowy shrubbery at the base of the nearest mountain. It isn't until she's brought me into the relative safety of a shallow cave that she lets me go, and I stumble down onto my butt at once, trying to catch my breath as I push myself back against the cave wall, watching her warily. She watches me back, and we sit there for a while, just us two, out of the cold and unsure of what to say. She eventually breaks the ice with, "You don't have any antlers." "No," I reply, I don't." "So how do you fight? Like, what do you use?" "Fight? Well, I don't really get into many fights, but with my hands, I guess." "Your hands?" "Yeah, like my fists." She looks down at her own fists, as if considering. "Huh, weird. You must have really strong arms." I flush and then laugh awkwardly. Well, yeah, I guess." There's another pause. "Why did you come over the bridge at such a dumb time?" she asked me. I don't even know how to answer that. I just came over because I was intrigued. I didn't think anything was actually going to, happen when I crossed it. "Why did you run away the last time?" she asked. I don't know, I wasn't sure what was happening. I wasn't as prepared yesterday as I was today. "Yesterday?" "Yeah, yesterday when I first came over the bridge." She shakes her head with a little half smile. "No, silly, it's been like 4 months. I try to comprehend this. 4 months. She nods vigorously. "Oh, right. 4 months. I peer out through the cave entrance to the snowy world beyond. "So what is going on? Where am I, and who are you exactly?" She leans suddenly close to me, and I stumble back up against the cave wall. Her eyes are large and brown, and she has a smattering of freckles across the bridge of her nose and her upper cheeks. "So does anyone have antlers where you're from?" she asks. No, not really. Deer do, I guess, but I don't know if that's what you mean." "Deer," she repeats, leaning back on her haunches. "Weird." She peeks out at the cave entrance. "I think we're okay now. The machine folk don't tend to bother coming out this way. They just want to protect their holy site." I run a hand across my forehead. "Holy site. Look, could you just tell me your name?" I ask her. "Kalela," she replies, smiling. "You?" "Stan," I reply. "So how come you were watching the bridge?" "Well, it's kind of my job to wait for animals that come through and help get them to safety." Her smile drops. "A person came through once about a year ago like you. No antlers either. He was one of the first creatures to cross the bridge after I took over the Watcher role." Her mood changes and the atmosphere cools a little. "I wasn't fast enough to save him. I still think about him sometimes. He was a fully grown male, but the machine folk made an example of him. I failed him, and it's something that I've worked really, really hard to never do again." "What did they do to him?" I ask quietly, and she sighs and looks away. "They strung him up, Stan, as a warning." I choose not to ask her to elaborate on this for now. The wind picks up outside, and the sound of its rumble grows steadily louder. "Come on," she says to me, taking my hand. She's warm. "I don't want us to get trapped here all day. Let me take you to our hideout." I nod, and she leads me back out and into the bluster. I look around for signs of the machines, but see no evidence of their presence. I fall in step alongside Kalela, and together we trudge through the fields and the edges of a forest, beneath the gentle, watchful eyes of the mountains. She tells me about herself, about this side of the bridge. She's never been across to my side, apparently. And aside from the man that she had mentioned earlier, I think I might only be the second human she's ever seen. She tells me about the machines, about how the bridge and its gate between worlds is something that the machines supposedly had made themselves long, long ago, and is now regarded by these metallic beings as something of a sacred site. The machines believe that the bridge continues to work due to its perfect balance between nature and machinery. The locations of the trees and the angles at which the bridge looks out to the hills and the mountains all have critical importance. She scoffs a little when she says this, and I look across to her. The machine folk are hypocrites, in her words. Outside of the sacred zone, wherever they go, they level the landscape and dig deep holes in the ground, pumping out fumes and bile, indifferent to the people who cross their paths at best, actively hostile at worst. If they really cared, then they wouldn't use those horrible flamers. She mutters, brushing some hair behind her ear. I catch a glimpse of a deep burn around her wrist as she does this, though she quickly tugs her sleeve back down. I tell her about my life back home too. I tell her how machines aren't people, but things that people use, and this is a concept that she seems fascinated by. So they just do what you tell them to. She asks, how come? Well, because they have to. That's how they're designed. They don't think or anything. They don't think, she repeats. Yeah. Huh, she says, wrinkling her nose in thought. How do you know? I don't have an answer for this. I also tell her about my dog Birdie. Her eyes light up at this mention, and I'm barraged with questions all about him. She doesn't recognize the word pet, but is happy to refer to him as my companion. I had a beast companion of my own once, she says excitedly. Her name was Aurelie, but I had to let her go off on her own once she got too big. I still see her sometimes, though, when she passes through. You let her go. What breed was she? A gray wolf, she chirps. I laugh nervously. Right, I see. Maybe I can meet Birdie someday, she asks. Well, yeah, why not? I guess I could bring him over sometime. Yeah, you need to come through when the machines aren't taking part in their pilgrimage though, okay? Otherwise, you would just have the same issue as you did today. I'm about to ask her to explain what she means by this, but as I open my mouth, we pass by a lone, high hill and the air chills. The sun breaks only feebly through the thick snow clouds overhead, but the narrow beams of winter light that had made it through glint warningly against the totem atop the hill. I lift my gaze as its shadow passes across Kalela and I, and a wave of fear shivers down my spine in response. The totem atop the hill is comprised of a series of sharp and dark metal poles and scraps of metal, intricately woven to form the shape of a cross. Affixed to the cross is a black, flame-scorched skeleton. Its jaw hangs from one hinge and its ribcage is stretched and cracked wide open. Sinner and trespasser are written on signs that hang from the cross's limbs. Kalela looks up at it with me and she pauses for just a moment. She rubs a quick hand across her eyes and mutters something soft and quiet to herself under her breath before carrying on. She walks a little quicker than before and the conversation dies with mood. I struggle with a deep and foreboding paranoia as we leave the terrible shadow behind us and we continue on and into the haze. It's not much further, Kalela tells me as we pass into the forest. We've been walking for about 20 minutes since leaving the little cave, and her mood improved when I offered her some food that I brought with me. Nothing special, just some store-bought cookies. but she enjoyed them so much that I actually felt a little bad telling her that I didn't have any more to give her. I'm also not really sure what to expect of this hideout that she mentioned. I'm kind of picturing a Robin Hood-esque, roughed-up campsite strung up between some trees. A band of merry men all with antlers hanging out in the woods. The truth, however, is quite different. Dang, is all that I can say when I first lay eyes on it. On the hideout. Here we are, says Kalela as she spreads her arms. Before us and nestled in the trees are a series of narrow wooden houses. They lean into and against each other at unusual angles. But aside from this, they look remarkably stable and indeed very livable. What I'm seeing is less a base camp and more an intricate little village. The inhabitants are antlered, sure, but that's about all I got correct with my prediction. They are of all ages and they stare at me as we pass them by. There are modest market stalls here, stone wells surrounded by leaves at their bases, and signposts grown into the trees. Kalela, comes a gruff voice to our right. Kalela stops and I do likewise, watching as a tall and wide-set man puts down his tools and walks right over to us. He's massive and his antlers go out further and wider than Kalela's do. You're back early. Hey, I did what I was supposed to do, Lurde. She retorts, pointing up at him. And Delena's heading out to cover the watch right now in luck, and you see what I did. I brought back a boy from the other side, safely. I saved him. The man she called Lurde looks down to me and raises an eyebrow. Good, he says after a beat. The machine folk have no respect for natural life. Every death in this valley is a stain on the spirit's own land. It's good to meet you, I say to him. My name's Stan. Stan, it's been a long time since a human has crossed over the bridge. You chose a less than opportune time to pass. And behind him are a group of antlered children. I can't hear what they're saying, but one of them points at me, and the others gawk and stare. I didn't know, I tell them. I didn't know about any of this. It's different on the other side. Different and dangerous. I don't blame you for seeking refuge on the spirit's side. But as I said, your timing wasn't opportune. Lurde turns and gestures to a group of his comrades. On Kalela, we're heading out to keep sights on the pilgrimage route. We would benefit from bringing along your human. You're human, I repeat, but he ignores me. On Lurde, I don't know. I'm kind of responsible for his safety now, and I was going to show him around. That wasn't a request, Kalela. You're welcome to accompany us, he sighs. Kalela looks like she's planning to say something else and then changes her mind and bites her tongue. Fine, she says, but we're keeping him out of danger. Lurde nods and he gestures us to follow. Our little group grows in size as we're joined by more of the antlered people. Each has something to say to me and I talk with them all, till eventually we head off through the wooden village and the trees. This whole thing is crazy. I mutter to Kalela as we walk. I'm still struggling to process that this is all happening, to be honest. I don't tell her this, but I'm also finding it hard to stop thinking about the scorched skeleton. The one strung up on the cross with a trespasser and sinner signs hanging down and warning. My need to get back, in all honesty. Lurde talked about my side being dangerous, but I know well which side that I would rather be on. I need to find a safe opportunity to get back, but also, I shoot a look over to Kalela. Also, I am still curious about this world. That sense of adventure remains, and I don't want to be like I was yesterday, running away at the first sign of peculiarity. So I'll stick it out for now. We pass by pine trees that are ringed with little lanterns, illuminating the gently drifting snow. Like Christmas lights. I murmur out, to which Kalela questions. Christmas lights. I don't know what that is, she replies. For real? Huh, well it's the best. Everybody's families get together and they share gifts and have good food. Everywhere is all decorated in red and green or gold. Usually there are loads of lights. Lights like how? Like electric lights, some artificial. I don't know how to explain it to you, but they're in all kinds of colors and at night when it's dark. They're hung up to form flashing and moving patterns, around houses and on trees. It's beautiful, honestly. She's fascinated by this, so I spent the rest of the walk telling her all about it, about all of our Christmas customs and events, and she gets more and more excited. A voice comes from our right as we walk. It's Lourdes, and to be honest, I'd kind of forgotten that he was there. Don't get too attached, Kalela, he says in a low voice. You know that I'll have to go back. She stops talking at once. I get it, Lourdes, whatever, she mutters after a moment, but our conversation is killed pretty much stone dead. The breeze blows. We approach the ridge of a hill and the general volume of the group drops. The talking lowers to a general murmur and the sound of their footprints is significantly dulled. Following the lead of those at the front, we crouch behind a series of large rocks, and Lourdes knocks on my shoulder. I look at him and he motions for me to follow him up to the front, where he points over the rocks and down to the ground below. You see that? He says quietly. I take a look. And down there in the valley between the hills and mountains, a dirt track has been ground into the earth and melted away all the snow. It winds its way through the hills, and making their gradual way along it are a series of shambling beings. The machines, it's plain to see. One of them looks just the same as the beings that had attacked Kalela and I this morning. Another is of a similar height but has no legs, instead churning up the snow and grass beneath caterpillar tracks. Great plumes of dark smoke leak from pipes across its shoulders, as it does from the others. The third is far larger, a shuffling behemoth that moves on 4 large metallic legs. If I focus, I can hear its engine whirring all the way up here, as it churns out those tarry black clouds. If I look to the right, I can see more trails of smoke slowly approaching from behind the hills. More machines, perhaps. Some of the group retrieve makeshift journals from their packs and begin making notes in a language that I can't read, noting the angle of shadows of certain rocks with little sketches. I turn to Lourdes. Where are they going? I ask him. They're all making their way to the bridge. There will be dozens upon dozens more over the next few weeks. We got word the other day about a small farm out in the east, completely leveled by the machine folk to make way for a rest stop. He scratches his jaw. 3 killed, no remorse. Corpses left for the birds. A rest stop, I reply. I don't get it. Why would a machine need to rest? Oh, everybody needs to stop sometimes, Stan. Can't keep walking indefinitely. Kalela chimes in. But that's the whole point of a machine, isn't it? To just keep going until it breaks down. Maybe it's like a repair center or something that they built. Lourdes doesn't seem to understand. What abomination they built in place of the farm is not hugely relevant. He reaches out for my shoulder. Stan, a female human, came across that bridge once, decades ago now. I was only a very young man myself, but she was able to help us. She was able to tell us things about the machines. She told us they would likely fail if knocked into water, and for the most part, she has proved correct. I can't tell you how many lives we've been able to save with her information. He looks out across the plains at the shambling machines. But it's not enough, and the machine folk have changed somewhat since then. I don't know what it's like on your side, but by all accounts, your dealings with these beings are numerous and deadly. It must be difficult fighting back without even any antlers to protect yourself. The wind rustles the collar of my jacket, and Kalela pulls her scarf a little tighter around her neck. Stan, says Lourdes, it's your turn now if you would help us. Take a look at these creatures. Is there anything you can think to suggest to help us here? The more machine folk come through, the greater the threat, and this is our most threatened time of the year. The more machine folk come through, the greater the threat, and this is our most threatened time of the year. What do you say? Will you help us? Kalela looks at me and tells, what can I say but yes? I nod and reply that I will. I'll try, I tell them, and a general sense of goodwill and thanks spreads out across the group. So we spend the rest of the day observing the machines as they trundle through the valley, all on their way to the bridge. They may well respect the locations of the trees and rocks that surround the bridge, as Kalela tells me they do. But out here they seem to care little for the environment. The largest of the machines that day, a massive, hulking ogre of metal, thuds past a tall, thin tree on its root, and its pipes catch in the branches. Instead of using effort to untangle itself, the machine instead just plods onwards, using a great hand to bring the entire tree down with a crash into the snow, rather than to stop or adjust its course. The rumble of its fall echoes across the hills. They share their food with me and I tell them stories about my side. They seem fascinated by the concepts of cars and even basic electrical appliances, but they struggle to consider them as anything other than threats. So cars aren't dangerous. One of the antlered people asks me, do they ever kill people? Well, I pause for a thought. Not intentionally, it's human error mostly. And you blame yourselves for the dust that they cause. Well, that's complicated. Kalela just wants me to talk about Christmas. I tell her about mulled wine and Christmas desserts, about Christmas music and bells and holly and all that good stuff, and she seems enthralled by it. I can already see the cogs turning in her head, wondering if she can emulate it here in her little village. I could show you how to make a wreath if you want. I grin at her and she grins right back with excitement. I would love that. Shh, Lourdes grumbles. Not so loud. Sorry, she whispers, looking at me and smiling. But all the while, the gears in my own head are turning too. I'm trying to think of a plan that I can use to help these people. The image of the man who came before me, the black charred and broken skeleton on the cross. It's one that refuses to dissipate, and I can't help but wonder if any of their own have suffered such fates at the metallic hands of the machines. It's nightfall back at the camp by the time that we return. We didn't just stay on that hilltop all day either. We also trekked around and followed the route back a little. We tried to get a vantage point of the leveled farm, but all we could see was ash and smog. Lourdes didn't feel happy taking Kalela and myself any closer, out on the first outing. It's late, I say at last as the moon rises in the sky. I should really get back. Oh, do you have to get back tonight? Kalela asks me. You can stay here, you know, if you want. And time passes differently on either side, Lourdes says as he sits back in his chair by the fire. I don't know when we would see you again if you were to return tonight. Tell me, what do you have for us in the machine folk? Do any of these creatures remind you of the machines from your home? Yeah, Kalela says to me, the orange lights of the fire bright in her eyes. And do you have a plan? I pause, heart beating as I look back into her eyes. She smiles and I look away, suddenly embarrassed. And actually, yeah, I think I do. The embers drift through the air and the antlered folk around the fire lean in. So, Kalela, you mentioned something to me this morning. You said that the machines dig deep holes in the ground, is that right? She nods and there's a general murmur of agreement through the gathering. Do you know why that is? We have our theories, but we're not sure now. Okay, I continue. In Lurde, these machines, the bridge is a holy site, right? They make a pilgrimage to come here. Yes. So they come from all around then. Pilgrims can travel halfway across the world if they want to. These machines, some of them must come from really far away. I try to gather my thoughts, express myself as best as possible. We all see the smoke they produce, right? The thick black clouds that spiral out from their bodies. It means that they're running on some kind of fuel. They're burning it, combusting like engines do. And I don't see them ever carrying any bags or pulling carts. They must be topping up somewhere on their pilgrimage or they would never make it the whole way around. Fuel. One of the folk asked me, like wood you mean? I gasped, but it's likely something that'll last longer. Coal or oil. I struggle for a few minutes trying to explain the concept of fossil fuels to them, but eventually I bring the conversation back to the holes in the ground. These holes, I bet that they're mines. That makes the most sense. They'll be mining for coal or oil or whatever to feed the pilgrims. I bet that's what they've done to the farm too. Mines, Lurde repeats. Energy walls. Yeah, I guess. Stan, will you stay? Stay for one more night and help us turn your ideas into a clear plan. I hesitate. Will my parents miss me for a night or two? Sure, I reply. I'll stay. Kalela wraps me into a hug and I try to laugh it off. I sleep that night in her spare room, listening to the sounds of the forest and the sounds of Kalela humming through the wooden wall. And the next morning I'm up and awake, looking over a series of maps. The known holes or mines, as they've started referring to them as, are marked in certain locations and raiding parties are set up. There's only 2 confirmed in this entire region, says Lurde. 3 if you count the demolished farm, and it's likely a new under construction mine. If they finish it, I say out loud, then more machines will come through. I mean, why wouldn't they? So we destroy them, says Lurde. There is a rustle of dissent. Lurde, says one of the antlered women. Destruction is not to be dealt out carelessly. The machine folk destroying the machine folk are inherently damaged and cruel. They suffer because of their curse, and bring that same suffering to our doorsteps. To destroy goes against the plan of the spirits, says another. I cannot break a thing that was made, even if by those wretched machines. You're fools, mutters another. The machine folk are unnatural. We cannot live and let live. They mean to destroy us. They haunt us, and if they had their way, they would wipe us all off the face of the planet. I can hunt a machine that enters into our realm, says another. If I'm threatened, I will strike. But to go out and bring down something that a sentient being has built, has created as the spirits created, I don't know if I can. Lurde just shakes his head. And if I am said to be cursed, then so be it. This human boy has joined our ranks, and I won't let this opportunity slip us by. I cannot wait for the wisdom of the next passing traveler, in 10 or 20 or 40 years' time. I step forwards. I'm not afraid of any curse. I doubt that it'll affect me anyway. Machines are different where I'm from, so I'll help you destroy them. A little further deliberation and that's all that it takes. Armed with axes and saws and split into smaller groups of the willing and the persuaded, we head out into the wilds. Following the maps to the locations of the mines, I've never in my life felt so elated. To be a part of a mission with a real impactful purpose, and one with the threat of real danger too. As foolish as it seems, the threat is exhilarating. It sharpens and clears my mind like nothing that I've experienced. Kalela with our group. She wanted to come and told Lurde that I wouldn't go without her. Across the fields we track, avoiding the paths of the trundling, grinding machines and their trails of smoke and leaking fluid. I've been given a white-green sweater interwoven with leaves and twigs, and we hide ourselves at the edges of the machine's outpost. Ahead lies, as described, a huge hole in the ground, surrounded by dark metal gridwork, caterpillar track gears, and grinding cranes. Smoke pours from cracks in the ground and the snow is all melted down there below. You know the plan. Lurde mutters and we nod and then split into groups. My heart pounds as I crawl across the edge of the hill through the undergrowth. The few surviving winter thorns scratch it at my hands as I move. This is insane, I think to myself. I mean, what am I doing? Why did I allow myself to get roped into this madness? And because you want it to be, comes the simple response and hack, it's right. Down below, enter a series of machines, roughly humanoid, though with long and rusted limbs. They creak and crunch as they move across the rough dirt ground, overseeing the transfer of metal materials being moved across these series of narrow tracks and smallish carts. The carts spark and whir as they pass over the iron rails, and some disappear into holes in the side of the nearest mountain. Kalela, Lurde, and I set to work on the selected tree. An enormous, reddish-brown pine that strikes way up towards the sky. Lurde determines the angle to carve at, and then we simply sit and wait for the wind to rise. 2 hours it takes, before Lurde determines the wind is loud enough for us to begin. 2 long and wintry hours. And we take it turns to strike at the tree, carving out a groove on the side that we want it to fall. We use saws to carving out this chunk of tree in preparation. Once the chunk is fully cut out from the wood, and already with arms aching, we start sawing away at the opposite side. It takes a long time and I lose count of the number of frantic glances that I made down to the mine below, but after a while we have cut our way through the bulk of the tree. The sound of a high, shrill bird whistles across the valley on the wind. Says Lurde. The others are ready and they're just waiting on us now. Just waiting on us. So close to success. And it's here that our luck runs out. I don't know if it's me or Kalela or just freak chance, but with our final strike of the saw, an enormous creak groans out from the tree and ripples all the way up the trunk, in time perfectly to a sudden drop in the wind. We freeze and I shoot a sideways look down to the mine to see 2 of the machines looking back up at us. Alert! Blares a siren-like voice. Organisms present at the facility react accordingly. Threat likelihood high. Oh no, I shout in alarm and panic sets in. The machines lurch into terrifying activity and grinding and creaking as they throw themselves up against the rock below and begin to clamber up towards us, their black eyes as shining with malice. A warning horn blares from the mine and Lurde looks back at us. Keep going, he shouts. Just keep sawing. Bring this thing down, that's more than signal enough. Go, go. And he takes off down the side of the snowbank. Snow spraying up as he lands with a crunch in the head of the nearest machine. There's a rattling of gears and cogs, and oil are sent spilt out over the snow and stone, and the other machine alters its course. Flames burst from one of its pipes and they're sent spraying out in a wide arc. I grab Kalela and bring her down to the ground as they pass by over our heads, and we feel the rush of heat. "Come on," I tell her, "we finished the job." "Right," she replies, and grabbing her end of the saw feverishly we work to bring the tree down. It creaks and wavers, cracking as it slowly starts to break away at our cutting, and at last we break clean through, and with an ear-splitting crunch the tree begins to tip. It tips in just the direction that we had set it to, and the air seems to vibrate as the monstrous pine comes tumbling down. "Watch out, Lourdes," we call out to the chaos below, pulling back at a burst of flames, and the colossal tree crashes hard into the metalwork of the mine. The second it connects, another similarly sized tree starts to fall too from the valley's opposite side, and it falls down hard, hammering into the metal grids and cranes. The first causes real damage, and great clouds of smoke and ash are sent billowing up and into the atmosphere, and the second impact is greater still. It smashes up the rail network and strikes the side of the mountain, sending enormous rocks and boulders tumbling down right into the hole, an avalanche of them really. A great orange flash bursts from the ground and the mine begins to collapse in on itself, taking a great deal of the equipment along with it. "Lourdes," Kalela calls, suddenly throwing herself down under her stomach and putting out an arm. Below us is the man himself, covered in ash and clambering back up the rock. I hold on to Kalela and together we help pull him back up onto the embankment. "Great," he grins, and I can't help but grin too. "Now let's get ourselves out of here." "Thank you for your sacrifice," Kalela murmurs to the fallen tree, and she takes a moment to rub some snowy soil across the exposed trunk that we've left behind. We regroup with the others in our little team and we race right back to the base camp, careful to take a route that we know won't be followed, and I'm riding the high for the rest of the day. It's all that we can talk about. And when the others rejoin us to share that they were too successful, I'm caught up in something of a celebration. I've never felt such a sense of community, of shared experience, in my entire life. It's addicting, but I can't stay here forever, I just can't. So the next morning, I tell them all that it's time for me to go. Kalela is particularly upset and it hurts, but I have to go. "Thank you for your help, Stan," says Lourdes. "You're a fine young warrior." I beam in response. He insists on accompanying me back to the bridge. The patrols and the watchers haven't spotted a single machine heading towards the bridge so far this morning, so we feel relatively safe. Kalela comes to. Delana and the others have been covering my shift for long enough. It's time that I get back to my post anyway. She shrugs, but there is emotion in her voice, I can hear it. We walk as a trio through the snow, though it's not as thick as it was yesterday or the day before. There's been no new snowfall for a while. We're taking a slightly different route to the one that we left from, Kalela and I, but it isn't long before I start to recognize where we are. "You know, I'm really grateful that you allowed me to." I begin, but Lourdes puts out a sudden warning hand and stops. "Something's wrong," he mutters and squints. I can see a figure that might well be Delana waving frantically at us from a branch up high in a tree. And then in the very next second, a great arc of flame comes bursting from the bushes ahead, torching the nearby hedges and sending us jumping for our lives. One lone machine stumbles through the undergrowth and swings round its arm. Its head sparks and fizzles. Trespasser, a trespasser from beyond the sight. It blares madly, and for a second time, Lourdes takes it upon himself to be the distraction. "Go," he shouts to me. "Kalela, get him to the bridge." And he ducks and dodges as the machine approaches, avoiding a blast of fire and then ramming his horns into the machine's side. sending nuts and screws raining down into the snow. And come on, Kalela cries out and grabbing my hand and dragging me towards the bridge, an exact mirror of how she had welcomed me in. We raced past the scorched bushes and past the trees and rocks. But as the bridge comes at last into view, I see that it is different. Oh, I mutter then, oh no. The snow across and around the bridge has been largely melted. It's clear to see based on the burned branches and damaged bushes exactly where the flame was wielded, and the bridge before me is nothing but water-soaked stone. Kalela stares at it and then tries to speak. Stan, oh no, I'm sorry, but it's not going to work. I try it anyway. I run to the bridge and attempt to cross, and of course, I'm able to do so. But my shoes tap against the stone, and when I reach the other side, when I reach the clearing, I'm still standing in it. If I turn around, I can see Kalela still there on the opposite side. Flashes of fire and bursts of smoke escape up into the air behind her through the trees. I rush back across the bridge and try again and then again. But without the snow, it would seem, it leads to nowhere but the clearing. It's just an ordinary bridge. It's just a bridge. The story is coming to an end now, guys. Sorry if it took a long time. I guess that I'll try and wrap things up. Explain how I got to where I am now. Lurde escaped with some bruises and burns, as he apparently always dies, and Kalela and I simply returned to the village. I panicked a bit at first, trying to work out if the time that passed over here was inverse to the time that passed over there, struggling to work out the mathematics of it all. But I came to the conclusion that a couple of days spent on Kalela's side of the bridge was still only a few hours back home, or something like that. And while I couldn't prove it, it was enough to keep me calm at first. I spent my days with Kalela, waiting for the snow to fall sufficiently to heal the bridge, but for almost 2 weeks, it barely snowed at all. I just became ingrained with the community. The destruction of the mines had a hugely positive impact on the region. Next to no new machines came through, though Lurde remains pessimistic, or realistic in his words. He knows that eventually they'll be back, and the machines, but for now there is peace. I helped the group bring down that horrible metal cross and the toad on the top of the hill with the scorched skeleton. We bury the bones and good words are said at the ceremony. The days go quickly and the weeks blur into months. The snow does fall again, but I'm no longer in any desperate rush to get home. After all, I ended up falling in love with Kalela. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you given the way that I've written about her. And what can I say, she's amazing. She loves me back, by the way, even though I don't have any antlers. The months pass by, but I can't help fleeting, painful memories of home, of my house, my friends, my family, of Birdie. It's these thoughts that build and grow inside me. They lead to conversations with Kalela, and these conversations in turn lead to discussion about taking her back with me, just for a quick visit. Maybe I could bring Birdie back here with me, and then she would finally get to meet him. She is skeptical at first, scared too, as she was raised on stories of the terrible, dangerous machines on my side of the bridge. But I am able to convince her to give it a try. I remind that surely only a day or two has passed on my side and that it's almost Christmas. I'll get to take her to a real Christmas market. You'll get to see the lights. I can't wait to show you. And my family, they'll love you, I promise. They won't care about your antlers, I'll make sure of it. Oh my goodness, she replies, grinning as we run through the snow hand in hand. This is crazy. I can't believe I'm going to cross the bridge. Her breath clouds around her mouth and she says it again. I'm going to cross over the bridge. I laugh, though we quiet it down as we approach, careful not to get ambushed in the same manner as last time. But there are no machines here now, and ahead through the bushes, and there lies the bridge, covered in snow and awaiting our arrival. I look at her and she looks back at me. "Are you ready?" I ask softly and she smiles. "Let's do this." I grin at her with a rush of emotion and together we run towards the bridge. The breeze rises as we step down onto the snow and looking past my feet as we run, I catch sight of a set of prints below me, right there in the snow. They look like a rabbit's. The rabbit prints lead up to the center of the bridge, across the middle and through the snow, and then down the opposite side and into the clearing beyond. I can see it. I can see the rabbit that made the prints on the opposite side, watching us both with its head cocked. We are moving too quickly for me to process all of this, of what it implies. But as we reach the halfway point in the breeze, whistles past my ears. Kaleila's laugh is suddenly lost on the wind. In one moment I am holding tight onto her hand, and the next I'm gripping nothing but air. My view ahead changes. I trip and stumble down the bridge like an idiot, slipping and crashing down the stone and landing with a grunt into the grass. Just grass, no snow. "Kaleila," I call out, breathing hard, but she's not there. I'm back to where I started all those many months ago. This is the bridge, and there on the opposite side is the clearing. But I can hear the gentle rush of the river. It isn't frozen now. There is no ice. The snow is melted, and all that's left of it sits in graying clumps in the shadows of the trees. The bridge is only stone. There's no snow on it at all. "No," I murmur, suddenly panicking. "No, Kaleila." And I stagger to my feet. I try running over the bridge, but nothing happens. I cross it forwards and backwards again and again and again as the sun sinks in the sky. And then it sets and I still cross, but nothing happens. Nothing happens and I'm all alone. She's gone. My parents greet me with shock and concern, though Bertie is absolutely beside himself with joy when I stumble through our front door. He sleeps in my room with me, but I barely get any sleep at all. I just watch out the window and wait for snow. I do that a lot these days, waiting for snow that never falls. The days go by and still nothing. Weeks. Christmas comes and goes, and months roll by. We enter into spring and then summer, and she's all that I can think about. Kaleila, the girl I left behind on the opposite side of the bridge. I still go there, with Bertie. I like to sit on the bridge's stone and imagine she's sitting on the opposite side with me. But I will wait. I will wait for winter. And no matter how long it takes, I will see her again.